What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another late night in the BrewLab with me, Lone Fox, your brewmaster in chief. And tonight, in the BrewLab, we're going to be doing some top 10, list type of video. Although there's definitely a little bit more than 10 in this one because there's a lot of cards that are really getting my brewing juices flowing. I think this little hike up in power level as far as Outlaws of Thunder Junction is concerned, what everybody calls power creep, is actually very, very welcomed as far as I'm concerned, because it might just out some of the more annoying cards from Kamigawa before rotation comes, which honestly I just cannot freaking wait for. Those of you who've been watching me for a while will know how much I hate certain cards, and it's not even hate, it's just boredom. I'm done. And the list is getting longer and longer because there's these combinations of cards that were never designed to be in the same format that are, and it's just creating this really annoying decks. The World Soul's Rage, what's his name, the Analyst, and the lands from New Capenna that gain life and search up. That whole deck is just the most boring thing to play against. The triggers take forever. It's so slow. I really, really cannot stand it. I almost always just concede as soon as I see them popping off. I'm just like, I'm not sticking around for this nonsense. But then, of course, things like Farewell, Wandering Emperor, so on and so forth. You know my list. It's starting to get quite lengthy, and rotation needs to happen ASAP, but I am sort of going off on a tangent here. We are here to talk about Outlaws of Thunder Junction, but I thought I'd preface it with that little tangent, because, like I said, I think the power creep and having certain answers and new things from the set is going to potentially push out some of those annoying cards I just mentioned, even before rotation hits. So we'll have a little bit of a fresher, nicely powerful, fun, very combo-oriented set that'll shake things up and keep us entertained until Bloomburrow comes out and then rotation. So that's it as far as an introduction. And now we're going to start with some, spoiler talk. But it's essentially a list of my favorite cards that have stuck out to me, things that I know I'm going to be playing on day one into the ground. And then once we get through the sort of top 10, there'll be some honorable mentions and just sort of general spoiler talk discussion about the new set. And, looking at also some of the commons and uncommons that I think are going to be, immediate staples in Standard on day one. So, without further ado, let's jump into tonight's top 10 list. So, first off, and I don't think this comes as a surprise to anyone, I'm a pretty big fan of black in general, and Rush of the Dread here is going to be a fundamental core card in a mono black, potentially Dimir, to have like counter magic to protect your combo pieces. So maybe depending on the matchup and depending on how oppressive this combo becomes, and I know you know what I'm going to get to in a second, but for those of you who have been sleeping under a rock, there's a combo that will curve very nicely into each other, which includes the vampire from Ixalan called the Bloodletter of Aclazotz, that says that whenever the opponent would lose life, they lose double that much. So you play that on turn 4, the Aclazotz, and then on turn 5, using the new spree mechanic, you'll be paying 3 plus an additional 2 for the final mode there that says target opponent loses half their life, rounded up. Half of your life is 10, and if you've got the Aclazotz in play, it'll make it 20 for an OTK on turn 5. Potential in Standard in black. I just love the fact that that exists. Give black a little bit of a chance again. It has completely dropped off. It is a splashed color in the Golgari mid-range deck. Otherwise, you very rarely see it, excepting, again, in said Golgari deck where they'll be playing you'll go for the throats and your bitter triumphs. But it's not, it's one of the color combinations. It's one of the colors that's the least played in standard right now, alongside green. So I'm hoping that this combo deck does pop off, and like I said, perhaps in a bit dimmer shell rather than just pure black, just maybe to have a little bit of extra card draw and counter magic to protect your combo pieces, in case you're running up against a control mage or another black deck with removal. You want to make sure that your Outlaws stays on the board. But this, alongside some other pieces that we have from Outlaws of Thunder Junction and that came in Murders at Call of Mana, we have like 3 now very good tutoring effects. Also, the bargain one from Eldraine, 4-mana one, Beseech the Mirror. There's going to be lots of ways of finding our things to make sure that even if they get removed, we'll either be able to bring them back from the graveyard or dig them up from our library and get them when we need them. So I really think that this like black-based combo deck with Outlaws and Rush of the Dread is going to be a thing. Fingers crossed. I cannot wait to pull it off. Stay tuned for day 1 of set release day. Unfortunately, did not make, didn't get invited to the early access alongside most of the people that I'm in touch with. It seems like only a few people, like the list is much smaller. I wish, they had not fired Jesse Hill because he did a fantastic job running the events in the past. And now, most of our smaller creators have been left in the dust, which is very sad. But hopefully we'll get let back in at a future date once they get their act together. But that is about as much as I have to say with regards to Rush of the Dread. I just think it's a really cool card design, and it gets to also showcase this new mechanic. Spree is looking really good. It's like a modal kicker, and there's some payoffs for that. Anyway, I think I'm done enough talking. The other 2 modes aren't terrible either, but I'm really looking into testing out that turn 5 OTK with the Bloodletter. All right, on to the next one. I don't think any surprises here. This card is going to be busted, like busted. And, Mono Red is going to lose a lot of bits and pieces after rotation. Things like Kumano faces Kakazan, the Bloodthirsty Adversary. There's a bunch of, fundamental bits and pieces from that deck that are going to be rotating. And this just goes straight in. Like, I think it just immediately replaces something like Felden or whatever, or the whoever's still playing the Charming Scoundrel, I believe it's called, with the makes either a treasure or puts a roll token or draw and discard. I think this is just immediately better. It's got this it's not worded in that way. It's not immediately obvious, but it's essentially just like a super prowess because it gets +2/+0 for each non-creature spell. So it's honestly even better than prowess because, it's, no, that's exactly prowess, right? Non-creature spell, I believe. Yeah, so even planeswalkers, enchantments, artifacts, everything will trigger it. And it gets +2/+0, and it's a 1/2 flying haster that can be plotted. So depending on, this will probably go pretty well in some sort of Izzet Spellslinger deck. Now that we're getting all of the enemy fast lands, like the Izzet one, the Golgari one, the Orzhov one. We'll talk about that later in the video. But finally, a lot of color combinations that have struggled and have not been able to be made into really good aggro decks. With the access to those lands, I can see us playing this in Izzet, in Mono Red, even in Golgari. It's going to be phenomenal, I think. Be aware of Slickshot. This is going to cause some serious problems. The amount of pump effects that we have that are really good in standard right now. Your brutal, monstrous rage, and there's another couple of ones that have just come out. There's one called Dreadmore's Ire. And there's that the one from Call of Mana that when the thing dies, you get a little 2/2 detective. There's so many good ones that are cheap, and then just plot this, then cast it for free, so you have all your mana up and fire off 2 or 3 of those pump spells. This thing's going to become a gigantic flying threat with haste. Boom, boom, boom. Oh my goodness, I cannot wait to play it, and I have a feeling I'm going to have regret saying this later on, because it's going to be one of the cards that I complain the most about when I'm on the other end of the table from it, because this is going this is going to be a thing. Like, it's really quick. And the fact that it's a wizard as well is relevant for all the formats. So I think Slickshot Show Off is, you know, out of the park. Fantastic card. Next up, we got Smuggler's Surprise. Now, this one maybe, I don't know, it's the green, you know, rare spree card. So we've seen the black one a little, you know, 2 cards back. This is the green one. I think the main difference in terms of power level is the fact that this one is green. I beg your pardon. It's green, duh. But it's instant. It's instant speed. And of course, you've seen everybody talking about this everywhere. I don't know if it's going to end up being as good as some people think. Others are also saying, look, it's a bit of a trap. I don't know. Personally, I think as a community, it'll get broken sooner rather than later, and it's going to end up in these turns where you put, you know, an Italian and a Traxa onto the battlefield at instant speed as a combat trick during the opponent's turn, or something like that, and it's just going to be backbreaking. I can imagine Domain playing this. I can imagine some sort of Simic ramp deck playing this. I can imagine some sort of Golgari mid-rangey grindfest that ramps a bit and then boom. You know, the amount of value is redonkulous. Yes, once you put it all together, it's 3, 4, 8, 9 mana, which is a lot. But, you know, I mean, that's how much a Portal to Phyrexia costs, right? Or is it 8? No, I think it's 9 mana. So it's not unobtainable. It's totally doable. There's so many decks that just have like 1 million mana by turn 4 in the format right now. And there's some new tools that are going to help ramp further in other in the new set itself. So I think it's not going to be as difficult as some people think. And of course, you don't have to go for the full 9. You can just do the one that really counts here, which is 4, 5, 6 mana. You put 2 creature cards from your hand onto the battlefield at instant speed. Of course, think about the setup, right? You need to survive until, you know, maybe turn 5 if you've ramped a little bit, and then. You know, so you're playing creatures to block with, or you're casting spells to interact with the opponent's cards, but you still got to get to that point where you have the 6 mana available and you're not dead yet, and still have like your Italian, your Atraxa in your hand. It's not going to be every single game. I don't think it's going to be as consistent as some people think, which is why it's got the other modes on it, where you mill 4, put 2 creatures from the milled cards into your hand. But you know, the cheapest mode with the most broken text is the 6 mana one, and that one firing off consistently every time isn't going to be, I don't think, as consistent as one would hope. But it's still really powerful effect, and the fact that it's also a kind of heroic intervention for your big stuff, which we've needed. Honestly, it feels a little bit like Surge of Salvation, 1 mana white, hexproof to all things and yourself, and protection from black and red, which isn't as coverall. This is going to be hexproof and indestructible to all of your creatures with power 4 greater until end of turn for 2 mana at instant speed. I think green really needs a thing like that, because it's not just like your Tyvar stand, your Tamio safekeeping that can only save 1 thing. This will be played in a deck with big chunky boys, so then it's just going to be a 2 mana, save all of my stuff. Unfortunately, yes, Sunfall will continue to be a problem, which is why I think this will probably end up in something like Simic, again, needing the counter spells or the phase out or some way to dodge around Sunfall, and then, you know, I wonder how many copies I'll end up playing. But again, this isn't like my top 10 of like, I know immediately they're going to be fantastic in the format or whatever, but they're just the kind of card design that gets my juices flowing, very powerful, really, it looks fun, I can't wait to play with it. So, Smuggler's Surprise, up here at the top end of the list. Next up, what we got is, for blue, Duelist of the Mind. I really struggled to find anything that I enjoyed in blue. As you guys know, it is by a long shot my least favorite color in Magic. I think that can be said for black. It would be really interesting to do some sort of a poll to see, like, you know, what is your favorite color, Magic players, and do it for like the entire arena community. I think blue would be the bottom of the list, probably. But who knows? Maybe maybe it's just me and the little bubble of players that I spend the most time talking to. That are mostly like aggro or combo-y or mid-rangey players that don't like, you know, playing blue cards. But there's a lot of reasons why this is freaking insane, right? This new Proft deck, Proft Eidetic Memory. This is going to immediately take the place of a card like the Connive Bird Ledger Shredder, like day one, as soon as rotation hits. And it's not even legendary, so you can have 4 of these in the deck. And it's flying vigilance, 3 toughness on turn 2. And then it just, you know, whenever you do a crime, you draw a card. Its power is equal to the number of cards you've drawn this turn. It'll fit right into that Proft's Eidetic Memory deck straight away. And it's going to be, I think, really, really, really good. So, of course, it's Nathan Stewart, the world champion from the last World Championship. So they've done a really good job making the cards for the world champions very, very playable over the last 4. I mean, all of these have seen significant play in standard and other formats. So I think once again they knocked it out of the park with Nathan Stewart's one, and very thematically on point as far as the type of Magic player that he is. I think it's perfect. So not only congratulations to Nathan for being immortalized in Magic forever, but also for coming up with a really nicely designed card that will definitely see a lot of play. So that's my top pick for blue in the set. Then we've got... now we're going, you know, no surprises here. I do like me some red cards, so there'll be more than one red card in my top 10 list. This one, I think more people need to talk about. It's just so freaking perfect. I can't wait to play with this card, man. Look at all the modes, okay? We can either untap all creatures you control, and if it's your combat phase and an additional combat phase after this, you can do that one for 4 mana. So, you know, turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, you do all your little mono red things. Ooh, Monastery Swift Spear, ba 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 ba, Kumano, ba ba ba, and then on turn 4, you just attack, and then bam. Untap everyone, give them all a prowess trigger, because you're also going to be having your the 2/1 hasty goblin man. Like, there's some great prowess cards, and I think again this could go. We could definitely talk about this in the Izzet deck that I was just talking about with the slingshot, the little bird wizard that I just showed you. You know, imagine. Goodness, like just imagine the turns that this will be able to set up. Double combat phases, trigger everything prowess, swing in again. Or, you know, the last one, just for 2 mana. Choose target opponent, so of course in best of 1, which is all I play, it'll be the opponent, and then whenever creatures you control deal combat damage to the player, this turn create a tap treasure token, so potentially making like 4, 3, 4, 5 treasure tokens. To then the next turn just storm off like crazy. Amazing. And then even just the 3 mana one, +1/+0 and first strike until end of turn. I cannot wait to play with this card. This is gonna be so freaking fun. And again, chapeau to the design team at Wizards. I think like this is another one that's really just knocked it out of the park. I love modal things where they can be played at different moments in the curve, or at, you know, depending on many different situations, so that you have options. This just gives so many good options for the color that it's in. Every mode is relevant at different times in the game, and one can just be a finisher straight away. This untap and attack again is going to be backbreaking in some decks. Cannot wait to play with this one. Next up, haha. No surprises here. I don't think either you guys have been seeing me doing some reanimation stuff. It's going to be interesting to see whether, you know, in best of 1, because there's, and it's not in this list that I'm about to show you, but the final tab on my little list here has got just the whole set. So then we can scroll up and down and talk about some stuff. But there's a reprint of Rest in Peace, which is going to completely invalidate any sort of graveyard shenanigans. And right now, the most oppressive of these graveyard shenanigans deck is the World Souls Rage, Teamer Ramp, millions of triggers with the new Capenna lands that I mentioned earlier. I think if that deck continues to be a real pain in the butt, it's just that Rest in Peace is such a sort of like a sideboard card. It's not really something that can be main deckable. And since I mostly play best of one on the channel, I don't know whether we'll start to be running into like, oh, every single opponent is now playing, Rest in Peace. But if it does become the case, then cards like this are gonna unfortunately just go, and that can be said about so many things. Reenact the Crime, Cruelty of Gix, the Squirming Emergence, Sultai deck. There's all of these really strong kind of combo-y reanimation type decks that if we have Rest in Peace as sort of like a format staple in best of one, suddenly those decks will just completely disappear because everything gets exiled. But if that is not the case in best of one and we run into it occasionally, then of course I'm going to be jamming this a lot. There's a Rakdos from the previous set, really strong card that I played a tiny bit in my Grixis Shenanigans list from a few videos back, but I still feel like I haven't even scraped the potential of that card. It's got a really cool ward effect where the opponent is forced to sacrifice creatures they control. Oh, is that right? No, sorry, that's Vein Ripper. It doesn't have a ward effect, but it says that if the opponent doesn't sacrifice something, then you get to draw 2 cards at the end of your turn. And it's like a 6/6 legendary flyer freaking beast. And that alongside the new Rakdos, there's a Rakdos Muscle, the Muscle. We'll get to that once we got the whole set on the screen. I think there's going to be just like this Rakdos, Rakdos deck, where you're playing in the colors and you're playing all of the cards with it on it, and they're all going to synergize really nicely together. I'll show you what I mean once I've actually got the brew tech. I've been doing some theory crafting on my Mox field account, which I don't share anywhere, so I'm going to keep those secrets close to my chest until I'm ready to show them. But the fact that you can have legendaries and then kill them yourself and then have them deal power equal to their deal damage equal to their power to a target opponent, and they enter the battlefield with an additional 2 counters. So like there's some OTK potentials even with Terror of the Peaks. That's a reprint. It's going to be really, really strong again if Graveyard Hate doesn't become main deckable in best of one. But all of these joins up enchantments seem really cool. Of them, this is my favorite one by a long shot. Then, going into something of a little bit of a lower rarity, we're going to be talking about this Goblin Mercenary here, the Vile Smasher Gleeful Grenadier. Whenever another outlaw enters the battlefield, we've got a lot of these goblins that are outlaws, as they are pirates, and that includes, I cannot remember his name now, the 3-drop that's been played in the pirate deck. I think finally we're going to have like a good Rakdos Goblins deck with like some artifact outlaw synergies. We get to play the new oh my god, why am I drawing a blank? The 3-drop with haste where you can sacrifice an artifact and then make a goblin, and then you can tap it to put a +1/+1 counter on all of your goblins. It was already close. I tinkered with it a lot in the previous set. It was definitely a more Anvil deck, but only called Anvil is going to be rotating out. I really am looking forward to it being just a Goblin Tribal Rakdos kind of aggro deck with some sacrifice synergies. And this, I think, is going to slot right in. Deals 1 damage to target opponent whenever you get whenever you play a one of these outlaws. So assassins, mercenaries, pirates, rogues, and warlocks. And we've got some rogue goblins, we've got some pirate goblins, we've got some mercenary goblins. Cannot wait. You know me, goblin tribal decks in general. Then this one that kind of surprised me, but if you really think about it, there's a it's got the saddle cost of 4, but there's a 3-drop that's got 4 power, which means you'll be able to play this on 2 and then on 3, play that one, saddle up the Destrier Seraphique, and swing, and you're going to be creating a 3/3 white angel creature token with flying. On top of that, it's a first striking lifelinker for 2 mana. You know, we can give it some extra power and toughness by putting some stuff on it. I think this might be a little bit of a sleeper, and I think Selesnya really needs some love right now. And if this is the way it's going to go, I'm all for it. Let's make like a good Selesnya mounts deck, saddle deck, whatever you want to call it. And yeah, well, no, this is just because they went and translated directly from the card in French. Celler, la selle is a saddle, so they just wrote saddle for, but it's mount. I think a good mount deck in Selesnya would be really fun, because it's been mostly sort of they've attempted a sort of an artifact deck with Steel Seraph and Teething Wormlet and all of that, and it's really fun. I've put it on the channel. It's not tier 1 by any means. Then there's the +1/+1 counters sub-theme or archetype that runs through most sets. There's always some sort of Selesnya card that cares about +1/+1 counters. That's also been fun, can be explosive, but definitely not even close to tier 1. And maybe, just maybe, there'll be some sort of a mount deck that forms up out of this set that, if not tier 1, at least close to it, that, you know, is playable and is fun and gets more wins than losses. And I think if it is going to exist, the Destrier Seraphique is going to be an important part of that puzzle. All right. Next up, we got Pillage the Bog. I think this card is going to be one of the most broken cards in the set. I'm just going to go out and say it right now. I think this is actually going to end up being like one of those, like, at first glance, no one really thinks anything about it. Sort of, oh yeah, whatever, I'll read it. Oh, seems good. But like, this is, again, here we go. Scotty, you nailed it. Turn 5, you're going to look 10 cards deep. So you get to look at the top X card of your library, where X is twice the number of lands you control. So, you know, in turn 3, just plot this thing in your, like, Sultai control deck, or some mid-range shenanigans, whatever. And then, at the point at which you need it, when you need to find that answer, that one thing that is important, that is going to be your combo piece, your win con, your, you know, maybe we'll even build that Aklazot's OTK deck in Golgari. Why not? I love Dark Forest decks. You know, black, splash a bit of green for card draw, card advantage, some artifact and enchantment hate that you don't usually get. You know, Terra Sunder. You guys have all seen my Dark Forest decks. I think this will go right in there. I mean, because of plot, you'll be able to cast it for free. Maybe at that point in the game when you need to go find your combo piece, you've already like 5-6 lands in play, which means you'll get to look 12 cards deep. That might as well be a tutor. You like there'll be some decks that, you know, basically just be able to look at your entire library, pick the one card that you need, put it into your hand, the rest into the bottom of your library in random order. It's fantastic. It's like one of those unobtrusive, like, oh yeah, it just seems like a little glue card, but I think this is actually, when it all shakes up, it's going to be like one of the most played cards out of the new set. It's freaking strong. I love doing these videos also because later on, we can all look back and see how many of these I got right, but this is like in my top 3 in terms of like power level. I think it's really going to end up being a fundamental part of the new format going forward. I think of all the colors, white is the one that got the most shafted. I had to go and look in the big score. For those of you who still are confused about this, they were going to make a sort of a la Aftermath expansion set that was going to come after the Outlaws of Thunder Junction. I think it might have been cool if they'd done it anyway. I think the people that complained the most were the people that play paper. It was like, oh, a whole new booster. Oh, I gotta collect and pay all these monies. On Arena, the problem isn't as big. So all it would have done it would have given us a nice new little set to play with between now and, because now, you know, after Outlaws, it's the long break until the next set. It's the longest part of the year without new standard legal sets. So having something in the middle of that just to keep the format fresh would have been nice. But they've decided to scrap that idea, and they just put all of the big score cards in with the Outlaws of Thunder Junction cards. So we'll get these all on April 16th as well. They're all mythics, but they don't necessarily all deserve to be. But it was just I don't know. I guess you guys all watched the videos from the official Magic channel. They explained why they did what they did, etc. I won't bore you with the details, but I was making this point because I really struggled to find like a card in white that I thought was going to be really good and like I would immediately play on day one. That's fun. That's going to like be, you know, a format defining card. I really had to dig deep. And again, once we get to where I've got a tab open with the whole set, then we'll talk a little bit more about that. But this isn't necessarily ticking all of those boxes, but it being a +1/+1 counter kind of creature-based type deck that you're going to be playing this in, and considering that the hideaway mechanic is going to rotate out in September, I think it's going to be fun to have something like this still in standard for another 3 years or another 2 years. And Collector's Cage is a nice little design, and I think there's certain ways, like if you play, I've seen other people talk about it, there's, you know, these 1 mana 0/4s, like things that are with 0 power. You play that on turn 1. Play a 2-drop. You can do like the Resolute Reinforcements that puts 2 1/1s on the battlefield, and then on turn 3 you play this and you have 1 mana. You can tap, put the +1/+1 counter on one of the 2 1/1s. So now you've got an 0 something, a 1/1, and a 2/2, and you'll immediately trigger and get the hideaway. You get to look at the top 5 cards of your library, and you know, like the most played hideaway card is definitely Fight Rigging. This is going to be like a new Fight Rigging type thing for more like go wide creature decks, and I think that's really fun. So I hope it ends up being as good as I think it is. And yeah. The only white card that I thought even worth mentioning, unfortunately, because I do love white. All right, and then I think this is the last one from my list. I know it wasn't 10 exactly, went a little bit over the number, but this one I'm really excited about because of the Boros Moon, Thousand Moon Smithy dowsing device. You know, there's finally Farewell's going to rotate out in September, and finally all of these artifact-based decks that I've been dying to play are going to be like viable, I think, in standard again. And they've been like skipping out artifact support in the last couple of sets. There's 0 rare artifacts in the main set, Outlaws of Thunder Junction, and as far as Murders of Karlov Manor, just like meh. But we got a lot of artifact support in Brothers War, and then we got a lot of artifact support in Ixalan, and now with the big score, there's a couple of neat little bits and pieces that I think we're going to slot in right away. And again, once Farewell rotates, there's not that much artifact hate in the format. You know, the control mages are also going to lose the White March. Get Lost does not deal with artifacts. And most of them are going to be staying not as creatures but as, you know, as artifacts where they go on the battlefield, so they won't be able to get hit by things like Sunfall. You know, there's that Blade Chariot thing, the 2 mana flash, 5 damage to tap creature. There's some really cool artifacts that I've played with, but it always felt like something was missing. And now I think with a couple of cards from this, and like I'm repeating myself, I know, but it's raining really hard. I hope you guys can hear me. And some of the stuff that's going to rotate out, finally, like good, both aggressively slanted, mid-rangey, or completely controlling artifact-based decks with Urza, melding, the Might Stone and the Weak Stone, all of that stuff. It's, I think, finally going to like be a tier 1 deck. I cannot wait. I really like that type of deck. So if you know, the more aggressive-based, probably Boros one with the dowsing device is going to be a force in the meta. I think Legion Foundry is going to be a part of that. When it enters the battlefield, it deals 2 damage to any target, and then you can sacrifice it and make a 3/3 golem. I think that's really good, man. I think that's actually surprisingly good. People have been, you know, commenting. Let's see if anyone mentioned it here. Bone Crusher Giant vibes. Here we go. Basically, Sorcery Speed, Bone Crusher Giant, or Virtue of Courage with potentially repeatable upside. Not bad, right? Because you don't have to sacrifice it, you know? You pay 2 taps, sacrifice any other artifact. And there's decks that want you to do that. This might even go in your freaking, you know, only called Anvil decks before that rotates. And then you get a 3/3 colorless golem. So it's an artifact creature token, which means, you know, you can push up the Thousand Moon Smithies, little gnome tokens, power and toughness. There's so many reasons. It's an artifact itself, so then you can sack it to other things. And the fact that it's a 3/3 for 2, essentially, and when it ETBs deals 2 damage any target, I need to stop gushing about this card, but I think it's really, really good, and I cannot wait to play it, and all other artifact decks come set release day. And that brings us to the final slide here, with, and of course, the honorable mention. I did talk about it earlier in the video, and here I am touching about it. Let's go over some of the lands that we got. Of course, all of these top 4 here, the rare ones, unfortunately, they're immediately kind of must crafts, and they're going to chow a lot of our wild cards, but you know, the color combinations that we're getting here just really, oh my goodness, I can't wait. It's going to help so much, making a lot of the color combinations more playable in the more aggressively slanted decks. So especially like sort of Golgari aggro, epic. Is it? Oh my goodness, is it? Thank you. All of these decks that have not worked, I've been trying to brew for so long. I think this is all it needed. It literally just needed a fast land. And even like a Orzhov Humans, finally, if, you know, add this on top of the Cavern of Souls. Unfortunately, the Boros one's going to make Boros Convoke even more consistent, because that's one of the main reasons why you occasionally win against Boros Convoke, is because the mana's so bad. But now with this, it's just going to be even harder to beat. Just overall, fantastic cycle. Very stoked that they're here. Cannot wait to play with them. And then talking about some of the other ones, I think it's quite interesting to point out that these ones that do the 1 damage when they enter the battlefield, there's potentially some cool like combos where you just play like maybe a Golgari, where you have the turtle that mills your cards, and there's a few other of the new cards from this set that, you know, you just, and the analyst that they're playing now in the Team Ramp one, you just put put all of these lands, and, you know, play maybe 30 of them in the deck, mill them all, and then play one of these effects that brings them all back into the battlefield in one go, and just do 20 damage to the face immediately with all of, like, you know, you just have 20 lands entering the battlefield doing 1 damage to the opponent each. Could be a pretty cool deck. Can't wait to try it. But nice that they also gave, you know, the more budget gamer some dual lands that have a little upside. These deserts are going to be fun. And then as far as some of the other ones, like the utility lands, I don't know. Maybe this one where you can tap, you know, make a creature unable to block might be interesting as a one-of in some like aggro decks, but otherwise nothing really that blew my mind, honestly. And that's it as far as the lands. And now we can just kind of scroll up and down and watch me blabbing about Magic cards for a little while, because there's some stuff that not included in the list that I just wanted to touch upon while I was in this screen. But just going back to that point I just made earlier about like the lack of some artifact support in the last couple of sets. I mean, this is it. These are the artifacts that we got. Yes, there's some like multicolored ones, but most of the artifacts came out of the big score down here. You know, artifact, 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 artifact. You know, they put a lot of them, artifact, 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 artifact. They put a lot of them in the big score little mini set. But in the main set, this is literally all of the artifacts that we got. Commons and uncommons, and they're all pretty terrible. Maybe the boombox could be interesting to see, like, if you can use Power Stone mana to do this. Destroy land, creature, and artifact. Might be pretty cool. But everything else seems absolutely terrible. And then some of the other cards that I just wanted to touch on that I did not include in the main list. This one, a cool, the Unrepentant. You know, we just played that oil deck with the Vat of Rebirth. I think this could go right in there alongside the Archfiend of the Dross. you know, 4 mana 5/5 Frampler that you can pay, you know, sack 3 little things and then put a freaking Atraxa on the battlefield straight away, or your Vein Ripper on turn 4. Easy to do in that deck. You know, make a bit of treasures, you know, kill them with oh my god, what's it called? The card that Boris Komberg plays that makes 3 little goblins, or, you know, there's so many ways to get like some little things to sacrifice, and then you can just put a Natalia on the battlefield on turn 4, and then have that be there alongside a 5/5 Frampler for 4 mana. That's pretty ridiculous. Then we've got where is he? Yeah, the Muscle. Talking about that Rakdos deck was talking about earlier. Whenever you sacrifice another creature, exile cards equal to its mana value from the top of target player's library, so you can steal, you know, the opponent's stuff. It's a 6/5 legendary creature, so it's gonna go great with the joins up. I think this is gonna be a really fun deck. This Rakdos, Reanimator, big demons decks. I can't wait to show you what I've got crafted up on Moxfield. I don't know whether I will do so, you know, and do some like theory crafting videos, or just you guys will hang tight and wait until the day 1 of set release and I start actually recording full brew text. But really excited about this one. And then now maybe some of the lower rarity stuff that I think is going to be staples, or, you know, so those kind of glue cards that, you know, things like your Considers and your Play with Fires. They're commons, but they're played in every single deck that is in those colors. Then they become immediate format staples. I don't know how many of the ones from this set are gonna do so. There's some that immediately just get replaced as soon as rotation happens, like Play with Fire with Shock, and, you know, they've already sort of done that. I don't know. If I had to pick the one that I think is going to immediately go right into deck on day 1, it's going to be the new 2 mana red removal. 5 damage. Here it is. Scorching Shot. 2 mana sorcery speed, 5 damage target creature. I think this is going to immediately just slot right into existing red-based aggro decks. Other than that, I think there's a new. Here we go. Where is it? It's up here. Huh? It's either artifact, it's another spree card at the lower rarity. No, I know it's here, so please bear with me. It's destroy target artifact, enchantment, or I just saw it. It has to. Here we go. Requisition Raid. Artifact, enchantment, or put a +1/+1 counter on each creature target player controls. This is going to be sick. I think this is going to be really good. Immediately playable. These are like artifact removal is going to be very relevant, I think, because of the aforementioned like artifact decks that I'm going to be playing, and everybody else once certain cards rotate, and then +1/+1 counters. I just love the flexibility. And that's really it. I mean, there's definitely more. I'm just running a bit low on time, and I think you're all bored of watching me blabbing my mouth off. And again, white seems to have been the most shafted. Like, there's some obviously strong ones. I think top of my list would be the Evan Interrupter. This is going to be very annoying and good. Yeah, clearly. Flash, flying, 2/2, counter a thing. Essentially, you know, sort of tax effect. It's cool to see the plot mechanic used. You know, it's clever design where anything the opponent has to plot or cast stuff from graveyards or from exile costs 2 more. So then the thing that you put back in their hand, or, you know, plot, is now taxed, cost them 2 more mana to do, and you get a 2/2 flyer with flash. I think that's really nice little card. But yeah, I think white got the most shafted this set. Like, really underwhelming. And I really wonder whether control mages will actually play this final showdown instead of just playing Farewell or Sunfall. The fact that it's instant speed is pretty relevant, I guess, but it's 6 mana. It'll be interesting to see. Really interesting to see. Tear up the peaks. Oh my god, I'm so excited. I'm so excited, but now I'm rambling. Even this Railway Brawler looks really good. I hope Mono Green makes more of a comeback than I really tried my best. It's close. Maybe this is gonna do it. But there's so many like 5-drops in green that seem amazing and then just never really helped. The Golden Vine Hydra, I think in like a modified mechanic type deck alongside your Shivan Devastators might end up being pretty sweet, actually. Great cards, great set. Cannot wait. Cannot freaking wait. But I'm going to have to leave it at that, guys. And love you and leave you. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, as always, consider leaving a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. Leave me some comments down below. What are your favorite cards from the set? What are you most interested in playing? You know, let me know if there's any specific deck that because, you know, of course, I'm going to get the entire set on day 1. So I'll have all the cards and I can brew and test and do whatever you guys want me to try and brew and test. So let me know in the comments. Let's start a little discussion. Come join us on the Discord community. Let's talk, you know, Outlaws of Thunder Junction and see what's what and what we can brew up on the lead up and on release day itself. But that is going to be it for this one, guys. Thank you again for watching. I'll see you all in the next one. And until then, this is Lone Fox from the BrewLab signing out. Peace, y'all.